Thank you, everybody, for joining me at Evolutionary Energy Arts. And I wanted to share with you a series of dreams that I had. And part of the reason why I feel so compelled to analyze and overanalyze things is it's basically I'm trying to figure out the dreams that have come to me going back to 1985, I believe. It could have been 84, but I think it was 85 was the first time I had a dream about things that could happen, and it felt like it was kind of a warning dream. And I'll say right off the bat that I do believe that there are multiple timelines available to us, that we could jump into other timelines. Those of you that are familiar with quantum physics and the breaking science that we're now learning about the nature of reality, there is the thought that there is all these parallel timelines possible because we live in a multidimensional universe with just a myriad of different possibilities in front of us. And it's all up to us, to shift our focus to the right areas and to change, potentially negative outcomes into positive ones. But these dreams were very, very vivid and very clear. And they showed the same thing happening over the years. And I just got different glimpses of it from, I believe, slightly different perspectives of what could happen. And so when I first had the dream, it was in my first apartment, and it was 84, 85-ish, and I was living in Connecticut. And the thing that really hit me was it felt like I jumped 30, 40 years in the future. It was a much more advanced way of life, but not Jetsons-ish or anything, but just things were different than they were in the 80s, which obviously they are now. The thing that hit me about this, as I try to get to the right picture, the first thing that hit me was the fact that there were these things in the sky, and they just monitored everybody. And to me, they looked like giant eyes. They were roundish. It sort of looked a lot like this picture. And they just basically watched everything that everybody did. Every move that everybody made was being monitored and was watched. And to me, they looked a lot like this. They were basically eyes in the sky, and that's what I felt they were. So they were a means to watch us. Now, I don't know if what type of technology this was, or even if it was technology, in some sense they almost felt kind of alive in my dream. But you got to realize this is going way back to the time before drones and things like that. And so it was just that there were these gigantic eyes everywhere watching everything. So every move anybody made at pretty much any time, you were being watched, constantly surveilled. And I don't know who was doing this, but it felt very ominous. And it felt like there was just no privacy. There was no such thing as privacy because everybody was constantly watched, constantly monitored. And again, this is going back into the mid-80s. And as drones have become popular, it's clicked with me that maybe what I was seeing was drones and the use of drones, but the use of drones to a degree where you're going to walk on a street and you're going to see a handful of them on every street. They're going to be hovering, just like, maybe 30 feet in the air, and just monitoring intersections, going, and if somebody is of note or interest, they'll follow you as they watch where you go from place to place. And they're everywhere, and we know there's cameras everywhere in our societies now. There's cameras pretty much at every stoplight. They're everywhere. And so everything is being watched all the time. And this was the first thing that hit me from those dreams. It was just the fact that there was zero privacy. This was complete Big Brother system. Yet, I couldn't tell who was controlling these things. This little graph from the Wall Street Journal shows the level of concern about drones monitoring people's daily activities. And, we could see how the concern is pretty concerned, especially when it comes to our home. We almost accept now, like when we're in the workplace, we're going to get monitored. We pretty much accept when we're out in public, okay, we're going to be watched, if I pick my nose or scratch my butt, it's going to be on camera somewhere. Whatever happens, we're being watched. But we don't want to be watched at home, which is something that is happening now too. And it's only going to increase. But the dreams weren't just about that. The most ominous thing that I saw, and every time they came back, and I've had them definitely 4 times, and I suspect I've seen them more over the years. One of the things that I see is there is so many lights in the sky. I'm looking up and it's just past twilight, getting dark, and I see the sky and there is countless lights in the sky, and I don't know if they're meteors, I don't know if they're alien ships. I'm not sure what they are, but there is so many lights that there's thousands of them visible in the sky. And the thought that hits me is there's nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. There's just no escaping from whatever this is that's coming in. And that's the initial thing I see, is just so many lights, it just boggles the mind that everybody's in a stupor. Everybody is just walking around with their jaws wide open and eyes wide open, and just kind of dazed, looking at that, knowing that there's so many of them, there's nowhere for you to go. It's overwhelming. There's so many of them. And there's just too many to count. And it's just this sinking feeling in the pit of your stomach that is kind of like that. When you're faced with something that you just can't believe, and it's potentially so scary that you're just kind of in shock. And so every direction you look, there's these lights, they're everywhere. And then I see the ocean and the sky. I'm able to see the ocean as well as the sky, and I see the lights in the sky, and then I see in the ocean. And in the ocean, there are ships, and I can make out that they are ships. And some of them look like those giant eyes that are watching everybody. And they're all coming towards the land. So they're not only in the sky, but they're also in the ocean. And they're also coming to the land from both above in the sky and from below in the ocean. And I'm able to see right into the ocean in the dream, all the way on down to the depths, and it's all clear. And so I could see that there are countless amounts of them in the ocean, thousands of them in the ocean, thousands in the sky. And it's really a scary, scary feeling. And in these visions, they start to take form, and they don't look like military aircraft. They don't look like, aircraft carriers and destroyers and battleships and military helicopters, or, MiGs or F-22s, anything like that. They look more like UFOs, more like saucers and a variety of other shapes. And they seem to be kind of crystalline or shiny, metallic, coming. And there's, again, so many of them, it's just boggling the mind. And they're in the water, they're everywhere. They're just everywhere. And so then it hits me that it feels more like an alien invasion type thing. And it feels extremely surreal and very, very scary. And this dream has happened, as I said, at least 4 times that I can clearly remember, and it seems to happen in pretty big intervals, like 7 to 10 years. And it's very disconcerting, and there's different details that come. In other parts of it, though, I do see troops, and I see helicopters especially, and I see parachutes being dropped. So there's also troops involved, and they're dropping soldiers, and there's military mobilization going on, and it feels like the United States is being invaded. And I could see them. I could see the troops, and I could feel that where I am, it's warm. And at that time, the very first time, I was living up in Connecticut, and then once I had the dream in South Carolina, that was the clearest. And where I'm seeing the troops, it's very warm. It feels like it's somewhere in the southeastern United States, where I currently am living. And I could see them clearly being dropped from helicopters en masse, and it's cloudy, and there's like helicopters that pop into these big dark rain clouds that you get down south, and then pop out, and different troops dropping down, and people are running, and people are becoming refugees, and they're moving away from the coast, and they're moving up, especially from South Florida, because it feels like South Florida is a place where troops have landed, and not ours. So here it feels like the United States is being invaded. The only thing that more the logical mind is saying is basically Russia, China, and others are the ones doing it. But I didn't see those troops, but I knew and kept hearing from people that they've landed, down around Miami and down around the Everglades, and they're moving on up, and there's a huge refugee swell of people rushing away from that area and heading up northward, trying to get up away from where the troops have landed. And I also feel in those dreams there's troops coming in from like Mexico, as well as coming down from Alaska and Canada into the United States as well. And people are just in a panic, and people are just running and becoming refugees, and en masse. And I'm in there with them, and I'm helping carry this older man who had 2 feet blown off from something, some sort of explosion. So he's missing his feet, and I know we have to climb some steps, and it's really hard getting them up the steps wherever we are, and that was something that stuck with me. And so it's that part's always stuck with me. And then at that point, I remember hearing people say they're only 20 miles behind us and heading this way. So it was a feeling of, well, it's no way we're gonna outrun them with this huge refugee population. And it's just it was a very scary thing and scary dream. So definitely felt that troops were coming in from Alaska, Canada, coming down. Definitely felt troops coming in from Mexico and from Florida. And the first time I had this dream was before I did like research into all the prophecies of what's gonna happen, like with Washington's vision. I had read the Bible at that point already many times, but I never really connected and thought about the fact that the United States could be Babylon the Great. And while I'm not a total Bible believer in the traditional sense, I do think there's a lot of things in there, a lot of things hidden, and there's a lot of things that are just some things that you can't ignore. So when I read about Washington's vision, it hit me that wow, that was just like what I had dreamed about and I've been dreaming about. Very, very similar. And then so many people have had these dreams. So many people have seen these things that it just feels like it's only a matter of time. And that may or may not be, because I do believe we have the power to shift reality. As we know from quantum physics, it's the observer that creates the world, basically. It's all by observation. And Buddha and his enlightenment, it was all about realizing that this is Maya. This world is Maya, which Maya is the word that means illusion. It's all really an illusion. We're living, as scientists now believe, in a computer simulation of sorts, a hologram, a reflection of a 2D reality that is actually much more real than this 3D reality. And so we could shift timelines, we could shift reality if enough people get together and really put their energy into it and their focus into it. And I think a lot of these visions are warnings that, we have to wake up and realize, that we've been manipulated and we were being manipulated, and we are being manipulated so it will create one particular outcome that the negative forces that are guiding and steering the world want to happen. So we have to wake up and get out of that particular outcome. And it's like I've always known at some point it was going to be very dangerous living in the United States. And at some point you'd need to leave. That was the feeling I've had. And then when 9/11 happened, it made it feel just 10 times more. And so I almost feel like it's amazing that we've gone this long without anything major happening. But these dreams, they've just been something that's been with me, for the last 32 years. And it's something that comes back, and I get a little bit more detail each time. But I do believe in them, and I do because I've kept track of my dreams since I was 12 years old, writing them down in dream journals. And that's something that's a good practice for everybody to do, because you will get insights and you will be amazed. And in 2006, I believe it was, I was just felt compelled to go through one of my own old dream journals. And I was just thumbing through it, and then I came across this dream. And as I read the dream that I had written down, it really hit me, because I could see this dream all of a sudden so clear. And it was a dream I had totally forgotten about that I had 6 years previous. And in that dream, I was standing inside a very, very big office building, and I saw something come and ram into the building and realized it was an airplane. And then it just caused this huge explosion, and I could see the flames billowing through the building. And then there was a second one that happened, and a second impact. And then I recognized what the buildings were, and that they were on fire. And I wrote all this down in my dream journal, but had totally forgotten about the dream until I was reading it again in 2006. So this is, 6 years after I had the dream that I am, reading about it, and I had completely forgotten about this dream, 100% forgotten about it. But then as I'm reading it, it became so vibrant, like I was having it again, and I could see clearly what it was. And clearly it was 9/11 with the World Trade Centers. And when I looked at the date of the dream, it was September 11th, 2000. It was exactly 1 year before it happened. And that blew my mind, because I didn't remember having this dream until 2006 when I read it in my dream journal. And so that made me realize, wow, that was a message. And if you've read anything about remote viewing, you know that this is very, very possible. The government employs people to do this. I've definitely been a very strong intuitive empath all my life, and I've cultivated it through meditation since, childhood. So we could all develop these abilities. And I just wanted to share that with you, as well as the practice of writing down your dreams, because it could be a very, very powerful practice. So I wanted to share all this with you guys to let you know where I'm coming from, so you understand me a little bit more. I've had a ton of experiences all my life, and other ones that I'll share with you as time goes on, and experiences that leave you knowing things, not just conceptualizing and thinking, but knowing on a deep level. So I wanted to share that with you guys. If you found it interesting, definitely thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet, and share. And there'll be more updates coming out, and I look forward to your comments. Please share with me what you guys have experienced, your dreams, your visions. What have you had premonitions of? Please feel free to share, and so we can grow together as a family here at Evolutionary Energy Arts and continue to decipher all the mysteries that are around us. Thank you so very much. Take care.